go. And it's time to buckle up for a new episode of Raise Nation Radio, the one and only podcast made to inspire fundraisers like you to continue making impact in our communities, building better tomorrows, and exchanging ideas. So whether you're a trailblazer or seasoned pro, you'll pick up the trends that transform your fundraising. And together, we'll dive into lively conversations. We're going to chat with those industry-leading fundraisers and thought leaders. We're going to explore hot-button issues and innovative ideas. So stay with us for the next 30 minutes while we inspire you to embrace the future of fundraising. So let's get going. I am super excited. I've been waiting all week for this show and episode to talk to some really great fundraisers. We have a corporate sponsor, we have a nonprofit, and we're going to talk about how this all fits together. So let me introduce and welcome to our show. We have a couple of guests. Firstly, from DipJar, we have Melissa Smith, who's the Vice President of Marketing and Strategy. Did I get that right, Melissa?
You did. That's right.
Oh, well, hi. Welcome to Raise Nation Radio. How are you?
Good. How are you doing? We're super excited to be here today.
Yeah, I'm excited too. But I also want to introduce our mutual customer, fundraiser, DipJar user, Theilen. I hope I said that right. Assistant Director of Angels Among Us. Ali, welcome to Raise Nation Radio. How you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting conversation. So, Melissa, I got to meet you and Nicole. I believe she goes by Coley, though, right?
Yep.
Just recently, about a month ago in Chicago at the Raise conference, you're a sponsor of Raise. And let me stop right there and thank you for your sponsorship. Without you, Raise, we couldn't do it. So it was great to see you there. But I kind of beelined for this cute little device that was sitting, at your booth. And I'm like, oh my God, that's the cutest little thing ever. It lit up. It told me how much I should donate if it was a real DipJar. It had, a little place like your logo here. I thought it was the cutest little thing. And I knew you had said that you just redesigned the whole DipJar. So I was like, all right, let's take a picture. And you're like, oh, yeah, that's nice. And everybody posed. I'm like, well, wait a minute. Where's Mr. DipJar? Right. And we were like, we have to take a picture. So I'm totally humanizing DipJar. It's now a person. So yeah, it was the cutest thing. And then, it's funny. I don't think I shared this with you, Melissa, but then afterwards, I actually saw attendees taking pictures of Mr. or Ms. DipJar. I want to be DE, inclusive of everybody here. So, yeah, it's super, super, super cute. Now, I got the concept, before we met, and then I fell in love with, the little guy, the little girl. But why don't we tell you in your own words, please, to our audience, I'd love for them to know you a little bit more, introduce yourself, and just explain the concept of DipJar, which is just like my new best friend.
Yeah, totally. So as you introduced, I am Melissa, and I am the VP of Marketing and Strategy at DipJar. But prior to joining the DipJar team, I actually spent about 7 years working for a nonprofit. So I worked in development and marketing. And it was actually while I was working for a nonprofit that I saw a DipJar. And kind of like you, Don, I was like, oh my God, wait, that's so cool. Like such an interesting concept. And, I was thinking about it with my fundraising hat on of, okay, wait, this is so good for events. And 2.5 years later, here I am working for the company. And I love the company. We're a small team. And what I think I love the most is everyone on our team really advocates for our customers, because we totally understand that they are nonprofits and they're serving the communities that they're in. And what we like to think we do, and I think we do it pretty well, is help make fundraising just a little bit easier. So the DipJar device, really simply put, is the way I explain it to a lot of people. It is a credit card version of a cash box. I know I never carry cash anymore. I don't know a lot of people that ever have cash on them.
Guilty.
Yeah, exactly.
I charge $1.30 at Dunkin' Donuts. It's terrible.
It's awful. But that's just how it is. And so DipJar came in and it allows you to accept those credit card donations of people just walking by, somebody that would likely throw like $5 into your donation jar, but they're like, hey, I don't have cash. And you're like, well, I have a DipJar. So why don't you pull up that credit card and make that donation anyway? So that's really what we're all about. Pretty simple, just trying to help nonprofits make fundraising easy.
Yeah. And of course, my wheels were turning about how many different ways that we could, use a dip jar at events or other, which I think segues into why we've invited Ali to this call, because you're a user. But before we get to that, Ali, could you introduce yourself to our Raise Nation Radio audience? Tell us a little about you personally, professionally, what you do, and the mission. We want to hear about the mission as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm Allie with Angels Among Us. I serve as the assistant director of our organization based in Omaha, Nebraska. So we're based in Omaha, which is the biggest city in Nebraska, but we serve families all across the state of Nebraska into Iowa. So it's any family living in or being treated in the state of Nebraska is eligible for Angels Among Us's support. So we provide both financial and emotional support to these families for the entire length of their treatment journey. So some families we walk alongside for 6 months, and some families it's up to 3 whole years. So we build some really close connections with these families. Not many people know that Nebraska ranks number 1 out of 12 Midwestern states in our country for the number of cancer diagnoses in our state. So it's not rare in our state. It's not rare in general, but specifically in Nebraska. And so we have had to really grow our capacity over the past handful of years, in particular, where we're serving upwards of 150 families a year. And our budget has tripled in the past 8 years. And
tripled. That's sad to hear, but thank God we have organizations like yours. Wow.
Yeah. And so it is an unfortunate thing, but we are very fortunate. We have great community support statewide to help us do so. And so we've had to get creative in some ways to help us increase our fundraising, make it easier, make it quicker. And a big part of that is the events that we host. We host 3 big events a year, and our dip jars are at every single one of them. To Melissa's point, no one does have cash. And if you do, it's usually gone, like going to Starbucks or whatever it may be. And so it just makes it really easy for people and really quick, because we were noticing kind of with some other processors that we had used is like, we don't want people waiting in line. It kind of sometimes deters them from giving. And we need to, we need to maximize on these people's attention. And so it's been a great way for us to build our capacity and make it easier than ever for people who either know us or sometimes strangers to our mission. It's just so simple. So that's a little bit about kind of us and what we do. But on a personal note, I guess I should have started with that. I'm born and raised in Nebraska. I am a dog mom to a mini golden doodle named Margie.
She is Margie. Did you say Margie?
I did.
Hey, shout out to Margie.
I know, she's the best. And sometimes she's at the office with me, but she's not here today because, we didn't want little dog barks behind us. But I'm engaged to be married, and I've been working at Angels Among Us for 4 years, and they have flown by. I've always been in the nonprofit world, so I kind of understand sometimes just nonprofit struggles in general. And so we're always looking for ways to make our lives easier, because fundraising, as we all know, isn't the easiest thing to always do.
No, for sure. Definitely not. All right. I want to break this down a little. Well, congratulations on your engagement. When's the big day?
It's on St. Patrick's Day, actually. So.
2023, March 17th, 2023.
Yeah, you got it.
Do you have an Irish background? Is that your
the fun
heritage?
We don't. We just keep fun. We're like, why not? So we're doing it.
I'm married to an Irishman, so but I didn't give in to getting married on the 17th of March. Well, congratulations. Shout out to your fiance. What's his name?
His name's Matt.
Okay, Matt. All right. So we got Margie, we got Matt, or I think we got all our shout outs. We also shouted out Nicole, who goes by Coley from DipJar, who we're missing today very much. I had the pleasure to meet her at the Raise conference, but I do want to get over to the DipJar. It's just so cute. So it's completely frictionless, which is and easy, right? It is the cutest thing. You literally just dip your credit card, boop, boop, in and out, right? Take us through that, Melissa. It is that easy. It's contactless, frictionless, whatever term you're using right now. So take us through that process.
Yeah. So, you hit the nail on the head. It's frictionless, it's easy, and it's fun. So the dip jar is quite literally looks like a little jar, and each dip jar is customized to the organization. So where you had said like you saw ours and it says that your logo here right on the front. The nice thing is every organization can customize that with their own logo. So I like to think of that as really being a little bit more for your brand awareness and just recognition when it's sitting out. Because if it's not at one of your events, sitting at a coffee shop, something like that, it's very easily identified as, you know, your organization. And then in terms of the donor, all they have to do is walk up to the dip jar, pull out their credit card, dip it. A little arrow lights up, tells you that you're ready to take your credit card out. And then the dip jar lights up and makes a really fun cha-ching noise. I
didn't get the cha-ching experience. Yeah. Oh, no. Okay.
It's very fun. We have a lot of people that like to double dip because they like just how fun the actual process is of making that donation. So you get some people coming back just to hear that noise a second time.
Yeah, I want a repeat performance. I want to hear the little cha-ching noise. Yeah. Okay, so you put you dip your credit card in, but now I also noticed that it illuminates, right? It's got like a little light show going on. Is it one static donation amount, or can the donor customize the amount of donation?
So it's not customized, on the donor side, but it is on the organization side. So they can change the amount. We often recommend keeping it at a certain amount depending where you're going. So if it's staying in your lobby, keeping it at that $10, $15, $20 mark. But I'm sure, like Allie, when you take it to events, you probably, raise what that donation is. And so the organization just logs in on the back end. They make an update to their dip jar, what they want the displayed amount to be. And then it's very simple as just plugging your dip jar in or unplugging and plugging it back in. So it cycles to power on and it'll update with that new amount.
Wow. So, okay, Allie, why don't we turn to you? How have you customized the amount for giving, based on where dip is hanging out?
Yeah. So it's funny, in the past 2 weeks, we have used our dip jars at 4 different events. Like
in the past 2 weeks, you've used it at 4 events. I just had to underscore that. Is that right?
Yes. So
okay.
We use them often because it is so easy to change the amounts. So for an event that's maybe just a smaller, like neighborhood block party or whatever, it might just be like 10, 20, and 40 or something. But for some of our larger events where we have big like raffle items or things like that, we might set them for higher amounts like 50, 100, or 250 or something like that. And it does make it really easy. We had our golf outing in July, actually, and we had one set at $100 at our like beer hole. We were just handing out beer to our donors, thanking them. And we had a guy dip 4 or 5 times because
he had to have a good time that day.
I know. I was like, man, let's give him another beer. But
let's not mention names for that one.
Yeah. We'll just leave that anonymous. But he wanted to keep doing it, 1, because he could, but 2, because it was so fun. And we kind of joked with him, like, you do know that's charging your card every time you get that fun little noise. And he's like, yeah, I don't mind. And so it does make it really fun as opposed to just like, swiping a credit card in another way. So yeah, we use it in all sorts of ways and all sorts of amounts.
Well, I'm paying attention as both of you are chatting and my wheels are turning. I guess DipJar had its reputation at a supplemental revenue stream for an event, but that's not the beginning and the end, not by any means. Can you use it for, like you just mentioned, can you use it for buy yourself a beer or a raffle or at coffee shops, I think I heard, or to fund, different things? Like, Allie, can you take us through that? How long have you had DIP? You notice I like humanizing it. How long has DIP been part of your organization?
I think this is actually our 3rd year that we've had our dip jars. And aside from using them on events, we have taken them to, there's this like local cafe that during the month of September, which is Childhood Cancer Awareness Month, we took it to their front register. And I think that was only set at like maybe $10. But mm-hmm. So throughout the month, we can see live on the back end, like, gosh, how many people are using it? And so they would do like social media posts to update people like, hey, we have our dip jar here. We set a goal of maybe $500, we're at $400. And so it's nice because it is live in real time. So regardless of how large or small your goal is, whether you're at a coffee shop or, it's an employee happy hour and you have to pay $10 to come, through the DipJar, it's just really easy to use, and no one tends to have a problem using it because it's just, yep, I have my card on me, or it's as easy as Venmo, if not easier, just because it's
way easier than Venmo.
You don't even have to like look up anybody. It's just right in front of you. You know exactly the amount you're giving. So yeah, our people.
So you can use it for not ticketing, but for, let's call it admittance, like to a backyard barbecue or something like that. You can use it for admittance. You can use it for beer. Clearly, you can use it for, a ninth inning, not inning. What is it? Holes. Right. There we go. I got my sport games mixed up, but a ninth hole donation, right? There's just so many applications. You can stick it at a cafe, but now I'm really turning, Melissa, I think you'll appreciate this because we're both, marketers, but now you have content. You have built-in content like, hey, Dip is hanging out here, and, be sure to look for it. You can post a little picture. You can post goal. You can post progress. And then, of course, you can tie that into impact. If we can raise $500, we'll be able to XYZ. So what am I thinking the right way, Melissa? Is that how organizations are leveraging this for, a full donation and marketing opportunity?
Yeah, totally. I think we see, like you just hit on, we've seen the DipJar used in so many different ways. And honestly, Angels Among Us, Allie, your team is like the perfect customer. You guys totally get it. Like, you're like, this is how we're going to use it at our events. When we're not at events, we're going to put it at a coffee shop. I set it at a lower amount, just try and get people to come, understand who we are, make that quick donation. But Dawn, like you're saying, you can kind of make a campaign out of it, because once people start recognizing that your organization has a DipJar, they're just going to correlate those two things. And so you can post it and say, hey, DipJar is hanging out at this brewery, stop by, grab a beer, make a quick donation, have a fun night out, and support us. So it's, you're getting pictures, people tag you because they'll take pictures of it, because people always love the idea of DipJar. It's fun. The lights and sounds and things like that. So we get a lot of people just kind of tagging us because they saw a DipJar and they're like, this is so cool. And so you're just kind of being able to use all that for your marketing, but also just, I think really that recognition, just getting out in the public, being at events and stuff is great, but sometimes like your capacity to do fundraising, on an individual basis is difficult. And DipJar kind of allows you to set just the device out there without a volunteer staff member, and still be able to make connections with donors.
Sure. And I think it also meets people where they are. I don't always leave home with cash, but I do always leave home with my credit cards, despite my husband's dismay about that. But I think credit card usage is really so widespread, and it meets people where they are at a donation amount that, when you think about it, you're probably spending. No, listen, I love my Starbucks. I'm not taking anything away from that cup of coffee every morning, but sometimes, at least me, I'm spending $5-6 on a Starbucks. It makes sense to drop another couple of dollars for good, right? I think that all kind of, goes together. Do something for good, every day. And you can do that with DipJar. It's just so flexible with everything that it can do. So what other fun ways are we not thinking about that we want to talk about? Give some of our listeners some ideas out there.
So one thing that I've seen that's been very creative, and I have to say, I probably show a little favor to this just because I used to work for an animal rescue. Hence, if we were on video, you would probably see 4 cats running around wild in the background. But, the listeners are getting a break from that because they're just hearing us. But we have a customer that is an animal shelter, and they actually kind of dressed their DipJar up. They put a little cat collar and cat ears on it. They named it Phoebe. And then they created a little campaign that was like, go find Phoebe. And they would put their DipJar at different locations in their community. So that, to me, one was, I think, very clever in terms of, adding the little characteristics of the cat collar and the ears. But I think what's great is using it to create community partnerships. I think so often when we're fundraising, you go to your local businesses and you're asking them for something in return. So going to the coffee shop and say, hey, can you donate back a percentage of sales? Or, hey, can you do $1 of every beer gets donated to our organization? And while that's awesome, if you can get the business to do that, I think what we've seen in the past couple of years because of COVID, these small businesses really took a hit. And so that might be difficult for them to do a give back day, but they still want to support you. So I think asking them just to host your DipJar at the register.
And all they have to do is plug it in, turn it on in the morning. Yeah.
All they have to do is plug it in, and it sits on their register. So they're supporting you. They can alert their customers to make donations to you, put little flyers up next to the jar, get the word out about what you're doing, but it's not really causing a strain for them financially in terms of doing an actual fundraiser on their own, but they're still showing support for you. So I think that's a nice way for organizations just to make stronger ties in the community.
Yeah, and I bet that it might lead to that, right? If the ask is, hey, can I just leave this here for a week, 2 weeks? And that leads to conversation, that leads to, well, tell me about the mission. What are you doing? Impacting the communities. And then, hey, you know what? I can donate an hour, a portion of sales. I would think that it becomes a little bit contagious and everybody just wants to pull together and help in any way. So it might be a nice way to segue into that deeper corporate sponsorship. If you get the DipJar real estate and the placement, great. But if you can get a little bit more, it might just be a nice segue. So I wonder if that's happening out there too.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I would think it's great for. But I also love it just for kind of like you were saying, and I said a little bit ago, it's just, it gets more people to recognize your organization. And at the end of the day, like the more people that you can get to understand who Angels Among Us is and the work that you guys are doing in your community and how they can support you, that's more people that you can turn into donors or just social media supporters or just, things like that. They are spreading the name or they're saying like, hey, I went and grabbed a cup of coffee. There was this really funny device, Angels Among Us. It was like their logo on the front. And so people are starting to talk about your organization, maybe in ways that you didn't really expect, but it's still getting your organization out there.
So tell us about the dashboard, because you mentioned about converting one-time donor perhaps into, a loyal donor or a long-time donor. Has that happened, Allie? Do you have a dashboard? Do you have access to data? Do you see how many hits or how many dips, I should say, how is that information available to you and how have you leveraged that?
Yeah. So on our dashboard, it's live and real time. So whether our DipJar is up at a local restaurant or at one of our events, I can log in like on my phone or computer and see exactly how many dips and the exact amount. We do collect names on the back end as well. So for the donors that we know, we send them nice thank yous and things. If it's a new donor, we're sometimes able to like email them a thank you from like information collected through DipJar, or maybe somebody who invited them to the event will know their contact information and we can still thank them. So I think it's definitely a good introductory for just like, not necessarily, what am I trying to say? It's a good way to collect new donors as an introductory piece to be in touch with them later. And a lot of people that have been to an event or seen it, and then they see it at another event or in the community, they just dip because it's fun. And so it is almost a retention thing as well, just because it's fun. And so, yeah, we can access pretty much anything on our back end, tells you exactly how much, how many times they dipped. So it's easy. I mean, I can't explain a ton about the dashboard just because it's so easy. You see it all there on your homepage. So
sounds like DipJar thought of everything. So kudos to DipJar.
How I feel explaining DipJar, I'm like, I don't know what else to say because it's so simple.
Right. Yeah, don't
words you can use.
Yeah, don't make it complicated. I also think it's really cute. So how many appearances does DipJar make for you, Allie, a year? How many appearances do you think?
Oh,
I mean, you just said 4 in 2 weeks,
Yeah.
I mean, can you even count it?
I bet our DipJars are out in the community at least 20 times a year.
Wow.
if I had to guess. And those are all sorts of things. Like we had somebody do a chili cook-off in their neighborhood and they're like, hey, can we have your dip jars? And we're going to make our friends pay for chili. I'm like, sure, here you go. So it just varies, but we do have people ask for them just because they know we have them. And then they don't have to, like Melissa said, have a cash box or anything. No, don't have to worry about change. So big and small, I mean, they're out there several times a month.
I was going to ask about that. Oh, my grammar was terrible. I was going to ask about that. Sorry about that. I was going to ask about that, but in a DIY fundraising capacity, because, we all want to do our part in the world. So whether we're having a lemonade stand or a backyard barbecue or, doing something like that, can you rent it out? Can you, if I'm a supporter of Angels Among Us, can I say, hey, listen, I'm doing something at my kid's school, or, over the weekend, I'm going to have a garage sale, or I'm going to, teach my kids about generosity and have a lemonade stand. As long as I can get electricity to it, do you permit that? And do people ask?
Yeah, we just give it to them for free because we're like, hey, you're raising money for us. Here you go. And the really cool part is, yes, you can plug them into the wall and it makes it pretty easy, but we have charging packs for them because 9 times out of 10.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. We don't have access to electricity like in the middle of a golf course or at a lemonade stand or whatever. And so I'll just pre-charge them in advance for people. And it takes a long time for them to die. We've never had it die within a day or two. So I would say they have at least 12 hours of battery life, if not more. Melissa probably knows the exact number, but yeah, we just pre-charge them and say when and where do you want them? And then we arrange pickup later. It's super easy.
Okay. So this is new information. Dip has a little charging capacity as well, Melissa. Tell me about that.
It has a portability kit. So, the DipJar I think is awesome. The caveat is you have to plug it in. But the nice thing with the portability kits is the battery pack will charge it. You are right on it. 12 hours of use is pretty much what we recommend, say it'll last. And so you can just plug it into the portability kit and take it wherever you are. So people taking it out on the golf course. I was even at an event for the Pittsburgh Ballet here in Pittsburgh, and they did an outdoor concert and they had volunteers just walking around with the dip jars to people sitting down, and they just kind of dropped the little portability kit in a little bag they were carrying and then had the dip jars just walking around throughout the crowd, which is awesome.
Oh my God. So it's totally mobile.
Yep, exactly. Okay, and they're super lightweight. So
I know.
Easy. Yep.
I held dip in our picture. Oh my God, this is so much fun. I think in a, new time for fundraising where we're looking at different, ways of giving have never been so important to nonprofits. I think back in the day, my dad, his generation, it was a check, you got something in the mail, you wrote out a check, and that's all we were catering to. And then of course, credit card, can you process credit cards? But today there's options, we saw it at the Raise conference with stock donations and crypto and bequests and all the different things. You really, the ways to give are growing, they're expanding. And if you want to capture those supporters wherever they are, however they are, and of course, today, make it frictionless and contactless, this is just another way to give. I mean, I can actually see it in a nonprofit's way to give lineup. Is that a fair statement? And that question goes out to either one of you.
Yeah, I think so. And that's what we definitely try and coach our customers on is this is another way for people to give to your organization. And in a time when I think nonprofits are critically understaffed at all times. Allie, I'm sure you do the job of 5 different people rolled into one job. And so anything just to make your life easier or allow somebody to donate is helpful to you.
Yeah.
Nellie, what I love for you is that you're busy doing the work of 5 people, but this dip jar is sitting at a cafe raising money for you. So if your head's down working on a grant application or, something that maybe is taking you away from stewardship and actually fundraising, DipJar is doing some work for you. So that could be interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, putting it with the right marketing out in the community anywhere, whether it's just a sign or our big pop-up banner or whatever it may be, you never know who it'll touch and how that person will get involved down the road. So it's awesome.
Yeah. Well, tell us a little bit more about the organization. What are your current needs? We know donations, of course, right? You always want financial support, but how can people get involved, and what do you need most right now?
Yeah, I think since our organization has grown so quickly because we've had to meet a growing need in our state, I think it's just that continued education piece of people understanding just the entire issue of pediatric cancer, but also just that there are resources available. We're to the point now where our organization has grown where sometimes families are telling cancer families before we even hear about them, which is amazing. And sometimes donors, maybe they have a kid in their neighborhood diagnosed or a little kid in their classroom where they know, hey, we know of this organization. So I think it's just continued education for people to kind of broaden our network so that they know we're here, whether you need our support, whether you need some volunteer hours in high school or your business provides volunteer hours, or if you are a donor that's capable of giving, any amount of money. I think there's a way for people to be educated about us on all levels. And so I think that's our biggest need, is just the continued education of our organization and also just the issue of childhood cancer as a whole.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking, and heartbreaking to have to experience that for your child, but let alone have financial worry and all the other worries that come along with it. Just heartbreaking. So I applaud what you're doing, every day. So thank you. But how do we get in touch with you? So social and web, give us all of those handles and how we find you.
Just like there are all sorts of ways to give, there are lots of ways to find us. We do have a Facebook page. It's My Angels Among Us. We do have Instagram, also My Angels Among Us. We have Twitter, but I'm not going to lie to you, I don't manage it very well. So don't look us up on Twitter, but you'll find us.
That's okay. You have DipJar. You don't have to worry about.
I'm guilty on that too, honestly.
Twitter is hard, but we have LinkedIn, and our website is myangelsamongus.org, which is probably your best place to go. It has all of our contact information for the staff. But also there's videos on there talking about our impact, and you can meet some of our families. And so I would say our website is the best place to start, or Facebook. You'll see testimonies and cute pictures of our kids all the time. So reach out in any way, whether it's a phone call, email, or just message me on LinkedIn. So it's pretty easy.
I was going to ask that. We can find you on LinkedIn as well.
Yeah, you sure can.
So did I misspeak when I introduced you? It's My Angels Among Us. Did I forget the word my?
So it's confusing. The name of our organization is Angels Among Us, but all of our handles and emails and things are My Angels Among Us.
Got it. Okay. Just making that clarification. That's a marketing thing. Yeah. I got it.
I know it's not ideal. Tell me about it.
It's okay. As long as we got it out here on this podcast, how to get in touch with you. We're all good. Melissa, I'm going to turn to you now. How do we get a DipJar? Take me through the process. A nonprofit is hearing this and they're like, oh my God, their wheels are spinning like mine are, or were. What's the process? I heard somebody come up to you at the Raise conference, like, oh, I just ordered my DipJar. What does that mean? Take us through that.
Yeah. So it's, again, very simple. You can head right to our website, which is just dipjar.com. And there's a buy now button, and you can literally just add to your cart and purchase a DipJar. You don't even have to talk to our sales team. You can if you want to.
Talking to you and Coley.
I know we've got Miles, we've got Aiden, we've got Ax, we've got a lot of great people that can help you through the process. But if you're averse to talking to people, that's all right too. You can just do it right on the website. And once you make that purchase, we reach out to get your logo. We reach out to get you boarded as a customer, setting up your account and your dashboard and stuff. And then, in normal times, I'd say you can get your DipJar, your customized DipJar back within 2 to 3 weeks. I will say just right now with COVID times, I think every industry is experiencing some manufacturing delays. So we're a little behind on that just because we're reliant on, other countries and suppliers for how we make the DipJars in-house, but we do make them in Wexford, PA. But that's it. I mean, you just go right to dipjar.com. You can chat in about us. Aiden will be answering your chat if you've got some questions about the process or just want to talk to somebody about your organization. But then you can just purchase it directly from our website.
Wow. So I'm getting the theme here with DipJar, simplicity. You guys just like simplicity.
Correct. After coming from the nonprofit space, I think what I realized and what I loved about DipJar was the fact that everything was simple, because I think the nonprofit world, you are so caught up in like things that have 6 layers of red tape, or you're going through 6 different people to get things approved and the process. And, DipJar, I was like, one click, super simple. It's like the Staples easy button, you just hit the button, you're good to go.
I love it. Allie, do your team have all embraced it? I mean, do they love Dip like I do? I mean, how's the relationship between your team and Dip?
Yes, we all love it. And now after this call, I feel like we have 3 DipJars, and I feel like we need to name them. So I've been thinking about that. Yeah.
You have 3 DipJars.
We do, because one isn't enough. And honestly, we will eventually order more, because there are some days I'm like, I wish we had 2 more. So yeah, we have 3 for now, but we will have more.
Wow. Melissa, what do you have to say to that testimony?
I love to hear it. And then my wheels go directly to sell the naming rights to a sponsor.
See? Yeah. Oh my gosh. Are we brainstorming right here, right now?
Yeah. Have a social media, poll, let the audience name it, let maybe some of the kids name your jars, make it fun. That's the thing. DipJar, we're always kind of, I'm I don't know. I feel like we can do some really fun things with DipJar.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, so our audience is listening to us. We're totally digressing into a brainstorming session, and they're probably going to steal it before we do. But that is really brilliant. I mean, name your DipJar. That absolutely sounds like a TikTok and social media campaign to me. Yes. Yeah, you can have, dip dancing on TikTok. It's going to go viral. I know. Well, you guys have been just so wonderful. It's been so much fun. I have truly been looking forward to this episode. I love talking to all of our guests on the show, but I knew this one was going to be just a little fun and a little bit unique. So I really do appreciate, your time and just, taking us all through it and how to get in touch with you. So Fearless Fundraisers, that's about all we have time for today. Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed today's Raise Nation topic and your daily dose of fundraising inspiration. Tune in for a new episode release every Thursday at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time. That's Thursdays at 12:30 Eastern. You can find your new show. But in the meantime, listen to all the episodes on Raise Nation Radio. Follow the channel that you like best. We stream on 10 channels, and then you can get notifications about all our new guests. Fundraisers are doing amazing things with building better tomorrows for our communities and with their DipJar. The stories are awe-inspiring. You won't want to miss a single episode. And please visit Angels Among Us for some of their stories, their heartwarming, endearing stories about helping families with childhood cancer. I'd like to thank our sponsor, OneCause, for making this episode possible. OneCause is driving the future of fundraising with easy-to-use software solutions that help nonprofits connect with donors. Be sure to check it out at onecause.com. Visit the resource tab on the homepage for a broad catalog of ebooks and blogs and webinars and podcasts, and of course, the brand new OneCause fundraising platform that you'll find very helpful. A huge shout out to Melissa and Allie. So much thanks for a fun show and for being a guest and sharing just your expert and authentic voice. It was super fun having you today. Any last words of inspiration?
I think for me, I will always encourage nonprofits to try something new. Change it up and see how it goes.
Yep. Try something new. DipJar is a perfect new thing to try. Allie, how about you?
I agree with that, but I also think, to our point earlier, people in nonprofits wear a ton of hats. And so I think it's important to find ways to make your life easier and just give yourself grace. Try it out, see if it works. If it doesn't, then move on to something else. But I think just staying confident in what you're doing, even on the hard days or the days you're overwhelmed, I think is important to remember.
I appreciate that. That's super inspiring. So Melissa from DipJar, Allie from Angels Among Us, thank you again so much. Fearless Fundraisers, that's a wrap. Until next time, I'm Dawn Lego, and this is Raise Nation Radio. Stay fearless out there.